Welcome to today's Minds Money 5 at 5 show, which this week is sponsored by Asante Gold, Emiral Resources, Loncor Gold, Newcore Gold, and Roscan Gold, and is brought to you in association with the Resource Global Network. For those of you who don't know, we started the first 5 at 5 back in April 2020, and 20 months on, we're now on episode 102. A few admin announcements before we start. Please have your video switched on. To ask a question, you've got a couple of options. You can use the chat function, which is at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see I've already posted a few welcoming comments there, or you can wave your hands via the invite participants function. I will unmute you and you can ask your question live. For today's show, it's all about West African gold projects, and we've got some great guests line up for today's show. We have Dave Anthony, who's Chief Operating Officer for Asante Gold, Boris Ivanov, founder and board member of Emiral Resources, John Barker, CEO of Loncor Gold, Luke Alexander, President and CEO of Newcore Gold, Nana Sangmuah, President and CEO of Roscan Gold, Mark Tyler, London representative for Auramet Trading, and Chen Lin, CEO and founder of Chen Lin Asset Management. I guess the opening question, and this was actually sent through earlier by one of our participants, who is Coty Marie, CEO and gold exporter of Precise Partners Limited. Going to question to Mark, what motivates you to invest in West Africa in the gold sector?
Well, thank you, Andrew. Look, I mean, just as a way of background, Auramet in its 20 years has invested right across Africa, from Southern Africa through the Congo, DRC, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and lots of places in West Africa, Mali, Senegal, Ghana, Burkina, places like that. We're quite comfortable that our recipe of dealing with people that we know and trust and have built relationships helps us to overcome, political instability. So we're less concerned about the upheavals that you're seeing in that sort of in the West African environment at the moment. And we focus very much on the resources. We think we can, the important thing is the resources. And so for West Africa, for us, is one of the premier gold provinces of the world. It's a premier mining province. There's other minerals, but the gold province is really important to us. And because of the fact that it's been around and it's a big province, you're getting a lot of infrastructure in place. That's not just roads and railways, it's the skills pool that's been around for decades, lots of mining experience. There's lots of people, the governments know how this is done. There are lots of contractors, whether they're capital equipment contractors or mining contractors operating in the region. And then in terms of the deposits, we can see it's a gold province, a big gold province, partly explored in some areas, well developed, but there's elephants available out in some of the newer areas. And so we can see a range of opportunities, from relatively small mines to the big giants that we couldn't get involved in. So we think there's something for everybody there. And in particular for us, there's opportunities for us to do well.
Thank you very much for that. Bringing in Chen Lin, what motivates you to the West African gold sector? And maybe kind of a quick sort of follow-up. Are you looking more for short-term investments or long-term investments?
Yeah, hi. I mostly manage my family asset, also write a newsletter on the side. So for me, I'm more in the longer term investment. Okay, just to answer the question. I like to watch, I like to get in the project early and then watch the company grow, and then eventually hopefully got take out or go to a listed much bigger exchange with cash flow, hopefully the whole cycle. For Africa, I'm agnostic about all the location. I've been investing in Canada, US, South America. Africa, to me, actually relatively new. I think there's a lot of gold there, a lot of resource, and there's some, as Mark said, there's world-class asset there. If we get in early, and if we're lucky, maybe we can stumble one of those.
And just a follow-up question for you, Chen Lin. We've got obviously a number of investors in the audience today. If there's one key piece of advice about investing in the West African region, what would you give them?
Oh, that one will be a geopolitics, and each country can be quite different, and then sometimes one country has certain issue, have a coup or something. Fortunately, they're so far so good. So that's you need to be careful. So they have a discount to North America, but if you it's really see if it's it's cheap enough
Mhm.
to be honest.
And yourself, Mark, what would your one piece of advice be?
Yeah, I mean, I think Andrew, it sounds a bit trite, but for us, it's a good indication of how well the project's being developed is how well the people are managing, or how well the project is managing the local community relations. I mean, it takes patience, it takes time, it takes tenacity, but the people who are involved there are going to be there forever. And so governments may come and go, but those people are important to the project. And so the way the company deals with that is an indicative way of the way they deal with the resources, the project development, and all of that. So I think it's just a visible demonstration of a commitment to doing a good job over a long period of time. So, I mean, I think that's true for a lot of places, but in West Africa, that's particularly important.
Mm-hmm. And just like another question that was sent in beforehand by a member of the audience, Mark Davis, Director of Litho Economics. Why are positive gold projects in West Africa not covered more positively in the mining press? Don't know whether you have an opinion on that, Mark.
Well, I think it's a question of unfamiliarity with the regional politics. I mean, I think there's a view that it's a difficult place to deal in. I don't think that's necessarily true. But I think the mining press covers places that are easier to get to. There's a lot more information about, Nevada, even if Nevada is not that great, it's easier to cover. So, I mean, I think people search for things where the light is rather than for where it might be found.
Well, I think that nicely sort of like leads on to our presentations that we're going to have today. As I mentioned at the start, we've got 5 really great mining projects, and we're now going to have some 4-minute short summaries from each of the 5 mining projects before throwing it open to questions from the audience and our investor guests. So the first presentation I'd like to have up is from Asante Gold. And again, I introduced him briefly at the start of the program. He is Dave Anthony, Chief Operating Officer of Asante Gold. Dave, I don't know if you'd like to go and share your slides and just talk to us a little bit about why investors should consider Asante Gold.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Let me see if I can get this screen to go full screen. How's that? So, we came out of the gate last August. Nobody really knew much about Asante Gold. We were very fortunate to get a hold of the Bibiani project. Obviously, I'm here. I'm excited about it. The people I work with are really excited about it. But nobody knew us 8 months ago. So we acquired the project at a very good price. We got a letter of consent from the government of Ghana. We raised about 60 million US to start the process and get the refurbishment going. And I think when we talked to people back in August and September and said we'd be pouring gold in the 3rd quarter of 2022, a lot of people had a chuckle, but that's exactly what's going to happen. We have met every one of our commitments to our stakeholders, our shareholders. We're completely on track with the refurbishment. We've got our miner is PW Mining. They mobilized in January, and they're now a month and a half into the piece. They're almost 2 months ahead of schedule. We put our first ore onto the ROM pad last week, and we're pretty excited about that. Obviously, we've got all of our permits in place. We've got when we started out, we had 2.5 million ounce total resource for underground mining. We reissued our open pit resource back in November. That comes out at a little over 1.8 million ounces. And of course, there's a significant opportunity for us to go underground. We're actually have an 8-year mine plan. We'll produce about 220 to 270,000 ounces per year. And we're planning to start studying the underground access later this year. We have a view to going underground at about year 3 to make sure there's a nice overlap between underground and open pit. So as I said, we have a nice profile. We are a near production miner. We're looking at plus 200,000 ounces on toward 270,000 ounces a year for the next few years. Very nice cash flow model, as you would expect. Absolutely fantastic area for exploration. And of course, we've got some great initiatives, great track record with CSR. As was discussed earlier, this has to be a discipline strength. We've got some first-class people. We also discussed earlier in the presentation the excellent manpower that's available, or people power that's available. I'm really proud of my team right across the board. They've just done outstanding work up to this point. And if you've been to Ghana and if you've operated in Ghana, it is an absolute pleasure. The infrastructure that's available here to support the mining business is outstanding. As I've already mentioned, the people are outstanding. And you know something, the goalposts do not move, right? If you take a look at how mining was done here 5 years, 10 years ago, and today, there's no significant difference, but there's always consultation. There's always discussion about how to make the business work better. So I think I've probably used up my 4 minutes, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you very much. And I think that obviously I think that some of you have already started to post some questions in the chat box, which we'll go and come back to later on in the show. So thank you very much for that. Next up, I'd like to turn to Boris Ivanov, founder and board member of Emiral Resources. Would you like to tell us a little bit about Emiral Resources, Boris?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. We've been quite a young kid on the block, just 10 years as a mining company. And initially we focused on Sudan. And actually we came to that challenging country in 2012, 2013. Got the license, and we started our production in breaking all the records in the industry. Actually, we have produced first gold on a relatively small processing facility, which we managed to establish in less than 18 months. It was a little bit of a gamble from the geological and production standpoint, because we definitely saw that there is a availability of gold, that the reserves are great. How great, we didn't know. And we've been conducting in parallel our geological surveys. We're still doing it, and we're still adding resources to our balance sheet. But in the meantime, what helped us is this calculated gamble to start production almost immediately. Yeah? Sudan was and is a challenging country from the, I would say, geopolitical standpoint, but mining has never been subject to any restrictions. It was allowed, and that's what we've done 7, 8 years ago. Since then, we developed quite well our asset in that country. We are the largest industrial producer of gold in Sudan. We are producing more than 3 tons. I'm still kind of a little bit, I'm switching from ounces to kilos or tons, but we are the largest the largest gold producer in that country from the industry standpoint. And we've been voted by the local ministry, local officials for 3 years in a row as the best mining group, the best mining company. Well, the things that we're very proud of in Sudan, we spend a lot of time and we saw the potential of artisanal mining. Artisanal mining is a big challenging issue across the board, all over gold mining. Every gold mining country has this issue. Yeah, and in Western Africa and Africa in general, Sudan in particular is facing this issue and opportunity, this challenge, because more than 2 million people are engaged in gold mining, and actually nobody knows exact level of production because of unaccountability of the artisanal mining process. So we established very close relationship with the local community. With the help of the ministry, we organized the delivery of artisanal ore to our facility, which greatly increased the efficiency, because of course artisanal ore comes with a very high grade, and sometimes it was just beyond any imagination what we saw in terms of the grade and in terms of the economic effectiveness and efficiency of our business. The big things, the big challenge, the big changes came in February 2020 when we in Emiral Resources were joined by very important and very financially strong Emirati partner from Abu Dhabi. And since then, we've been reshaping, refocusing our strategy, aiming not only at developing business in Sudan, but also going in several other countries. We have selected, obviously, Asante. We know very well the team and the people behind the equity shareholders base, the local partners. And from day one, we were very committed to be the anchor investor in Asante Gold, which we still maintain at 19.9 after all the subscriptions that they have just recently issued. And Ghana and Asante is our obviously priority. Of course, we'll continue to maintain our equity presence in that country, maybe increase it. So we'll see how it goes. And in fact, we've been also very actively engaged in other places in Africa, like Mauritania, like other countries. And well, we have big plans.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Boris. That was a really, really good sort of summary of Emiral. And again, any questions for Boris, please feel free to post in the chat box, and we'll come back to Boris later on in the program. Now I'd like to get our third summary of the opportunities in West African gold projects. And we have Nana Sangmuah, who's President and CEO of Roscan Gold.
Thanks, Andrew. I hope you can see the slides okay. I think it's the forward-looking statements that's up here. And we can just jump right into the presentation. So Roscan Gold is advancing the asset located in Southwest Mali. It's a very prolific region that had seen several Tier 1 type discoveries. And our goal is to make another one of those. So far, we've made 7 discoveries, advancing some of them into resources. And we're very confident that we ultimately would be able to build scale, which will justify a standalone. Some of the notable projects in our vicinity is Fekola producing at a scale of about 500,000 ounces a year. To the west of us, and Loncor complex doing about the same to the north of us. So we're in great company, and we've amassed a land package which is about 3 times, or almost 4 times the size of the package that our peers have to the west. So a good platform to build from, and it's been an exciting couple of years as we move forward. This part of the region had seen less exploration dollars, but our structural consultant highlighted the occurrence of a first order structure, which already had started proving itself, with a discovery in Serbia to the south and the Seco deposits to the north. And rapidly, when we did the work, we've been able to out 7 on this trend, and we advancing these as we speak into the resource phase. And we keep getting surprises. I think we announced another discovery just a few weeks ago, DC, which popped up, and it looked like a dilation zone coming up surface in fresh rock, and quite an exciting high grade that we are following up on. The main zone, though, is the Manku, where the street nodes, where we've had consistent high-grade, wide intersections, what you need to build up significant ounces. And that has been very much the case. And recently, we've actually seen that footprint seems to be expanding as well, because you've seen expansions at MS3. Most of the drilling had been concentrated on MS1, which was chased to a strike of 50. And with incremental drilling, we've seen the zones continue to open up at depth, and MS3, which used to be a small blob, has really grown in size. We're investigating the potential for those 2 zones to be connected. That will give the opportunity to process this in one single pit. and the drill attending, and we'll find out in due course. The footprint is getting bigger, and I think that should have an impact on our meeting before the end of. If you look at Mankuki, what's really exciting about this deposit is the ability to generate significant margins. The long section shows the purple zones, which you're looking at materials greater than 3 grams sticking right up surface. So you're definitely dealing with a very low strip or no strips scenario. High grades, readily available. And the beauty of it is this is heavily weathered. So for about a depth of about 150, you probably could have a free dig situation, and you can dump trucks right away to chuck this into a plan that's within a close proximity with us. So very exciting discovery, which I believe is going to be the core of an economic establishment for the project. And we've actually also been able to prove that metallurgy is really compelling. You're looking at 97% in the oxide profile, which is mainly here. And if once you get into the sulfides, you're seeing about 92.9. So all good numbers points to a high margin.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that, Nana. That was an excellent summary of the opportunities at Roscan Gold. Moving on to our fourth presenter, we have John Barker, who is the CEO of Loncor Gold. John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so this is our wonderful emerging deposit at Dumby, and we believe it to be one of the preeminent emerging gold deposits due to grade and dramatically increased size. And slowly but surely, it's beginning to attract attention of investors and corporates alike. In essence, long story short, recently valued at $1 billion profit after tax at $1,840 an ounce. We've got 85% of that $1 billion, and our market caps are around 60 million, creeping up now. So our market cap's around 7% of our attributable value. So cautionaries, there will be possible forecasts in here going forward. So where are we? We're in the DRC. We're right in the top right-hand corner there. Many companies are developing world-class projects there. Global players such as Ivanov Mining, Rob Freeland, are flourishing in the DRC, for the benefit of many shareholders. However, for us, it's a proximity to Barrick, who's managed the Kibali gold mine. It's only 200 k's away. It's not just any mine, but it's the 5th largest gold mine in the world and Africa's largest. So it clearly illustrates what can be achieved close to where we are located. And the growth at Dumby alone has been significant. We have other resources. We have actually over 5 million in total in a control, but we're currently focused on Dumby. And they've moved during COVID times, essentially, from 1.36 million ounces to 3.66 million ounces, all in the pit. We have no resources yet underground, and yet gold's continuing its merry way deeper. So the mine grade, based on a recent PEA going forward, is 2.17 grams a ton for the open pit. So very robust. It's cost us around $5 an ounce to find the ounces. And then I think finally, 2 key points. We have a mining permit. So obviously people perceive risk in mining permits. It's there already, and the government already has its 10% free carried interest. Summary of the deposit on the left there, the resources, and plus 2 other deposits, Katenga and Manzako close by. The center of the Dumby deposit, it's got a high grade pink area there, going right down, continuing open at depth. Looking at the grade there, the open pit resources are very similar to what Barrick's mining at Kibali. And then the holes we've drilled underground so far, again, reflects zones as good, if not better, than Barrick's mining underground. So in 2022, we hopefully can add to the resources at depth. We're just currently planning what to do. So with those 3.66 million ounces in pit, we went ahead with the PEA, and these results were announced just the end of December, and suggest the annual output over 300,000 ounces per annum, 10 years. We also incorporated here a hydro power plant. It's key for our ESG going forward. And this pushed up the CapEx, but the reality is we're looking at a third party for financing the hydro. significantly closer to sub 400, 390 million. But it's a valuation that's key. Gold price is 1840. So calculate, as I said, around $1 billion profit after tax, and we've got that 85%. We believe with more data, with drilling and that hydro being built independently, we can refine that PEA even more positively. So this, in a way, is a key. We believe why it's very interesting for Loncor shareholders. We've got one of the largest attributable resources through West and East Africa peer group that we show here. That's the size of the bubble we reflect. We've got one of the highest grades amongst the peer group. That's the left-hand scales in the grams per ton. And yet we have one of the lowest valuations shown by the enterprise value along the bottom there. And just to remind you, Perseus just announced to take out Orca Gold recently. And Orca is a similar valuation to us, but Perseus is putting a value of over $60 an ounce. So that's why we believe we're going to continue to see investors, equity and corporate, get involved in what we're doing. And there we are. We announced in the end of Jan, got no brokers covering us. We've got a few investment bankers. We raised cash ourselves, but lo and behold, we've got some groups who are not ignoring the progress and the potential as I discussed. And I think my time's up, but essentially a bunch of boxes there to tick. And I think we ticked most of them there. So hopefully over time, our unknown story will start to gain traction. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, John. And our last mining update before we throw it open to questions is Luke Alexander, President and Chief Executive Officer of Newcore Gold. Luke, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Andrew. So Newcore Gold, I'm Luke Alexander, President and CEO. At Newcore, we are advancing the Enchi project. It's a district scale exploration project in Ghana. What I learned throughout my 15 years on the investment banking side of the business, covering global natural resource funds, advising them on different transactions around the world, is that you really need three key things to push a project forward. You need to have a great asset within a great jurisdiction. You need a proven management team with a good track record, as well as you need strong support from the capital markets. And we're very fortunate at Newcore to have all of those things. Let's start with the team and the capital markets. So team, we are very well aligned with shareholders through our 27% ownership in the business. So we ultimately think as shareholders first. Here are a few of the companies that we've been involved in over the years. We're also very well institutionally backed, currently 40% held by major deep-pocketed, long-term focused mining funds. I think that really speaks to the district scale asset that we've got, as well as the team involved. We're also very well supported by the capital markets. So we currently have 5 tier 1 investment banks covering us from a research perspective. So all of those things obviously help push our project forward. And as everyone on this call knows, you can have the greatest project in the world, but if you don't have the support and the money to push it forward, it's pretty much worthless. In terms of Ghana, I think Dave touched on a number of points about what a great jurisdiction it is. But I'd add to that in the sense that look at the major gold companies operating in Ghana. You've got Newmont, 20 or 14% of their global production comes from Ghana. They're investing another $800 million into the country, which will take it to 20%. In 2021, we had a huge amount of M&A activity in Ghana, and Dave also touched on some of that. The other thing I'd just highlight in terms of a great jurisdiction, look at what Asante is doing in terms of taking their project from brownfield acquisition to production in less than a year. If we did the same in North America, you'd look at 3 to 5 years. So that really speaks to, the country as a great jurisdiction. We've got great neighbors along trend from us, Chirano to the north, Bibiani to the north of that, and then that Newmont asset, the Ahafo asset that I touched on. Our Enchi project, it is a district scale project. As you can see on the map on the right-hand side here, we've identified 25 targets across our package, 40 kilometers from the north to the south. To date, only 4 of those 25 targets make up our current 1.4 million ounce resource. All of our existing deposits remain open along strike, so we're continuing to step out and grow the overall size of the resource. All of the news releases that you saw in 2021, none of that is included in our current 1.4 million ounce resource. So we see substantial growth potential from our existing resource areas. We're also going back to previously drill tested areas, looking to move those forward, get them into the deposit category. And then we're also focused on some new areas for the first time ever and looking to get some of those results out in the next month or so. We're then also focused on a number of targets across our project that don't have any work done on them. The last thing that we're very excited about is the opportunity at depth. What we see with these greenstone hosted deposits along the Sefwi-Bibiani belt, including Chirano, Bibiani, Ahafo, is where they really grow in size and increase in grade is as you start to drill deeper and get into the sulfides. Our 1.4 million ounces today currently sits 85% within the oxides. As part of this 90,000 meter program, we're starting to drill the sulfides for the first time ever, and we're very excited by some of the results that we've been getting. I think that's my 4 minutes, Andrew. So over to you for the question segment.
Hey, sure. Thank you very much for that, Luke. That was a fantastic summary. I'd now like to obviously invite our audience to go and post questions. And I've seen that I will go and take a few questions from the floor very, very soon. But just before I do so, I want to go back to our two investor guests first. Chen Lin, do you have any questions for our panelists?
Yes, hi, excellent presentations. But first, I'd like to ask Dave Anthony, Asante. So you got this from Resolute, which is a very good deal you got. You know, it's a really scoop it at the bottom. Congratulations. And can you tell us what Resolute did wrong and why did they have to sell you at such a, you know, bottom of the market?
Well, I don't know if they sold at bottom market. There were 4 or 5 different companies in the bidders room. We were able to put together a package wherein we had the opportunity to do the negotiation on an exclusive basis. We were able to convince Resolute and the government that we were the right partner to go forward. We had, as you could tell from the news releases, we had approval for the project to proceed by the government before it was ever announced. And that's one of the keys, I think, to doing business in Ghana. The government doesn't like to be surprised with a fait accompli. They consider themselves to be a partner and they expect to be engaged as a partner, and full credit to the guys that put together the deal on that basis. What did Resolute do wrong? Resolute came into a situation where they had very, very negative relationship that they inherited from the former owner. And when Resolute looked at the deposit and said, this needs to be a big open pit mine, the community said, we've had enough of you foreign national miners and the messes you create in the community. You can go ahead and mine it underground, but you're not mining it open pit because our infrastructure stays exactly where it was. When we engaged, we asked the same questions, and Resolute had done by that time a great job with CSR, and we inherited that, and we're building upon that track record. But because Resolute did a great job, and because we had the right people on the ground able to talk with the community and talk with the government, we had approval to develop the mine as an open pit mine, and that's exactly what we're doing. So it's going to be a big pit. We have a road relocation. We have some other infrastructure being relocated, but that changes the economic picture significantly. As I mentioned earlier, we have access to about 1.8 of the 2.5 million ounce resource reported by Resolute. The economics are very, very strong, as you know, and it also gives us the opportunity to continue to explore. You mentioned this is a great opportunity. I would classify it as once in a lifetime. The exploration potential here is as great as all outdoors. We've finished our preliminary on-site mining or exploration program. We drilled off about 10 or 12,000 meters. What we're finding, and you'll see it in a 43-101 report coming out in April, what we're finding is the satellite pits and the main pit are going to be a lot bigger than what we envisaged when we came out in August. So we've got a great start to the business, and we just see it getting more and more significant going forward.
Great, thanks for the answer. So basically, it's a Resolute didn't have the license to mine, and you have it.
A big part of the equation is social license. Resolute inherited a very negative situation. They turned it around, But by the time they turned it around, they had other priorities in the company, and their focus was elsewhere. The government said, move it or lose it. So they moved it, and we're the proud owners.
Okay, great, thanks. Andrew, can I ask other company or just?
Yeah, if you want to ask like one more question, and then I'll like move over to Mark. Yeah.
Okay. So then next I ask Luke. Then Luke, to full disclosure, I'm your shareholder. So you recently have some indications when you drill deep, you find some higher grade. Can you elaborate on that? What's your next round of target?
Yeah, so if you look at our overall drill program, it's been a multi-pronged approach that we've taken. All of our deposits, as I highlighted, remain open along strike. So we're systematically stepping out at all of our existing deposits, which will ultimately grow the overall size of the oxide resource, which a number of you will recognize are very economic and profitable ounces. So we're continuing to do that. But as part of our 90,000 meter program, for the first time ever, we're starting to drill below 150 meters and getting into those sulfides. And as I mentioned, along the Sefwi Bibiani belt, whether it's Chirano or Bibiani or Ahafo, where you see these greenstone deposits really increase in grade and grow in sizes as you start to drill deeper and get into the sulfides, and ultimately find where those feeder zones exist on our project. We've been very encouraged by a number of the results that we've had from some of the deeper drilling. If you look at the results we put out early January or mid-January from NIAM, we think we've now proved up a 500 meter zone, which is about, starting at 150, 175 meters below surface. That ultimately is a couple of these potential feeder zones of 5 gram plus material. If you look mid last year, we put out some other higher grade results. Actually, our highest grade result today, 95 grams over 2 meters, 13 grams over 1 meter within the same hole. So those are the kind of high grade results that we then go and look to follow up on and really identify where these feeder zones exist. We aren't going to lose focus on expanding the oxides, but we have been very encouraged by the higher grade results, which will ultimately show the longer term potential and underground opportunity that sits at our Enchi project. So those would be some of the high grade results that we've been encountering with this 90,000 meter drill program.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much for that, Chen. Thank you, Luke. First, I can bring in Mark from Auramet. Do you have any questions for any of the presenters?
Yes, please, Andrew. Could I ask John, is the metallurgy in your deposit similar to your neighbors, and what sort of plans do you have for carrying on with development, including drilling and that sort of thing?
Sure. Yeah, the metallurgy is sitting around 89% from what we've seen. As part of our next round of drilling, we'll look to do a bit more just to firm on that, but we're pretty comfortable with a figure of 89%. There's marginal differences between oxide, transitional, and sulfide, but the deposit's dominated by sulfide. Was around 3 million of the 3.66 is sulfide, and it's sitting, say, close to 90%. So there doesn't seem to be anything weird or wonderful sitting in there of significance, so we're happy with that. As far as the drilling program is concerned, I was talking to somebody last week about this. Our team has had its head to the grindstone, really, just getting the PEA document in place. As you appreciate, Mark, it's a 480-page document, and we just put it in to the TSX CEDAR a week and a half ago. So we're sort of taking a few deep breaths, putting our head up now as a group and thinking where we're going now. So there's a little period of consolidation. But what we're going to be looking at is where we want to be putting 5, 6 sort of holes underground, diamond drill holes, just to push that resource. I mean, we'd love to get the resource through 5 million ounces, and I think that'll probably 750, 800 meters depth. We should be approaching those sort of figures. Who knows what it crops up? I mean, it's a guess, of course, but that's what we'll be looking at. And then some RC drilling potentially in the top 200 meters of deposit to improve the the resources with the reserves an obvious target for us down the line. So mobile RC rigs are coming in, but that's still in the planning phase. We're busy planning over the next couple of months where we're going to put those holes. And some people say, you know, what's the next use? Well, we sort of say, well, we just put $1 billion marker in the sand for our $60 million. So I think for the time being, I'd like the market to consume that and perhaps see some improvement in our price. But we will be doing things as the year progresses for sure.
Thank you. If I have another question, Andrew, could I speak to Nala?
Please do. Yes, please
Nala,
do.
could I ask you, I was very gratified. I was able to go to Mali in October last year, and I was, in the height of where problems supposedly existed, and it was very easy for me to get in and out, and it was very peaceful. It was great to be able to travel to a place in COVID. I was just wondering whether you've been affected in any way by the recent developments, or is it true that is business as usual in Mali?
Well, we've not seen any interruption at all. I mean, it's business as usual. We've added rates. We get in good turnaround for more labs. When the sanctions were put in place, the first thing we did was to test if we could send money from head office to various contractors, and we were able to. And we checked with our labs to also see, because some of them have to prep the samples in Bamako and take them to other West African countries for completion of the process. And that cycle has still continued, and we continue to receive samples. And you've noticed that we've actually armed our news flow rates from the project. So it's business as usual.
Yeah, I think that's a lesson for us all about West Africa. Things look bad, but given the infrastructure and the abilities, it's always works well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. There's a question from the audience from Simon Curran from RGN for Boris Ivanov. Boris, what are your investment parameters?
Say it again, sorry. What? Can you repeat your question?
So the question is, what are your investment parameters?
Well, obviously, we are looking first and foremost on the possibilities that can bring the company quick to production. And from that standpoint, Asante is an excellent example. And I would like to comment a little bit on what Dave said. I think the question is not what Resolute did wrong. I think the question is what Asante team did right, because it's a classic example, in my opinion, of the new trend, which is emerging in Africa in general and Western Africa in particular, where we will see much more, I would say, national champions. That's what at least I call it, where we have a very solid and very strong local participation in the company. That is the platform, the prerequisite for the government being supportive, local communities being supportive. And this, I would say, local factor in combination with the huge experience, operational experience of people like Dave and Anthony and Douglas and other members of the team creates quite a winning. We are very much paying attention not only on the reserves base and on the company being ready for production. And I think Asante bought with Resolute not only resources, but also the, I would say turnkey ready processing facility, which is very important. With all this COVID and I would say logistic hurdles that it created. It takes, I would say, 3 to 5 years probably to build something like that, what Resolute already did on Bibiani and what Asante inherited. So we are very carefully analyzing all these factors. Obviously, resources, the political trend in the country, where the company is, where we are investing. And of course, and foremost, it's the team, the people, and the ability that all actually brings the company to very impressive, I would hope, production numbers as early as the end of this year.
Thank you very much for that. There's a question from Paul Renken to all 5 mining panelists, which is, what is the current coronavirus situation at the mine sites of the various speakers. I don't know who would like to take that first. I can see Dave's hand up. Dave, if you'd like to go first.
Sure, thanks. You know, Resolute, when they were here and we followed on, they were fully embedded on site with a competent medical staff. Straight away, you get into a regime of temperature testing, a regime of nose mask wearing, hand cleansing, and it's very effective. These are basic tools. As well as that, we provide the vaccine, and of course this helps a lot. But over the last year, and I'm talking now 2021, we had 38 cases. So 38 cases, and I think right now we've got probably about 1,100 people on site working. It's not a real prevalent number, but as soon as people have symptoms, they're encouraged to come forward, get isolated, stay isolated until the symptoms are past. We haven't had any serious health issues, but we've got a culture where people are encouraged to come forward if they do have an issue. So all of these things together, look, in the last year, I've probably been on about 10 or 12 different mines around the world. And you find similar programs at each mine where most mines are very, very rigorous around healthcare, around response, about encouraging people to come forward and prevention. And I would argue that the COVID has made life interesting to get these practices established, but hasn't really impaired the business at all.
Thank you very much for that. Who else would also like to answer that question?
Just to add, from our side, thank God. Basically, we employ a lot of the local workforce, and we've had stringent COVID protocols, but it's sort of protocol upon protocol, because we have our protocols and only any non-essential staff never gets to the drill sites. So we limit access, and the drill contractors also have their own protocols. So to date, we're yet to record any active cases, and we hope it stays that way.
Just talking from an exploration point of view, I mean, we have a very tight team on the ground. They've achieved a heck of a lot over the last 2 years, but it's it's still early stage exploration, so they're relatively remote, and so we don't necessarily have the same issues of the producers with the large numbers. But where we have seen it is in the areas that people have spoken about before, permitting, samples just slightly delayed and getting rigs through when you wanted, but that's easing as well over time. So.
Thank you very much for that, John. Boris, sorry.
Yeah. Well, we have about 980 people on site, and we were very fortunate by imposing very strict anti-COVID protocols and following them precisely. Yeah, we're in the remote area as well. That was a factor, but we had only 3 or 4 cases on site. Yeah, they were completely taken care of, and of course we. From day one, from the first day of the pandemic, Emiral and our partners in UAE, we were promoting quite a big program of government-to-government help and assisting in fighting COVID on a national basis in Sudan. Yeah, but of course it's also focused on the area, on the region where our block is located, Block 30. In fact, we had more cases in our office, which is much smaller in Khartoum. We have about 20 people, and we unfortunately had some COVID cases, all non-lethal, of course, and all, I would say, without any major symptoms. But at site itself, things were quite normal, and I agree that COVID didn't disrupt at all our I would say, production activity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. And Luke, I wasn't sure if you wanted to add anything.
I'll just make a kind of broader comment. I mean, I think West Africa has fared very well from a COVID perspective relative to a lot of other parts of the world. I mean, Ghana specifically, within 2 weeks of COVID really starting to kind of spread quickly, they shut down their borders in March of 2020 and didn't open them back up to international travel until August of 2020, when they did reopen them, you needed to have a PCR test before arriving. And then at the airport, you do a rapid test, everyone arriving. So, I mean, those are the kind of measures that we didn't see, North America or lots of other parts of the world implement until, well after a year of COVID being in place. And as a result, they've always had very low cases. I think right now, the country's on a rolling 50 case over a seven-day period. That's on a population of 30 million people. So the country's fared very well from that perspective.
Thank you very much for that. There's just to go and stay with you for a moment, Luke, there's been a question posted to you by Jonah Dadsey. Have you already drill tested for underground potential?
Yeah, so I think that goes back to my earlier comment when Chen asked the question. As part of this 90,000 meter program, for the first time ever, we're starting to drill below 150 meters. So we've started to test it, but obviously given the size of our land package and the number of targets across it, we've still just scratched the surface. But with the deeper results and testing of potential underground material, we're feeling very encouraged and have really now started to hone in on some very prospective underground areas. But that being said, we've got tens of kilometers of additional oxide material where we've identified other areas that we want to also test. So I guess we've just started would be the answer.
Okay. Just actually looking at a few more questions that have been posted. There was one I missed out earlier, which was a question for you, Dave. What kind of process did the company have to go through to gain the permit for the open pit mining at Bibiani?
So when we bought the asset, we were fully permitted to get that was fully permitted with an up-to-date EIA for an underground operation. When we declared that we were going with open pit, we had to put together an addendum, which pretty much follows a normal EIA process, except a lot of the surrounding factors don't need to be gone over a second or third time. In any event, we went through a scoping study. We had it reviewed by the EPA. We had a full-on public hearing where I think we had somewhere around 25 or 30,000 people attend from the community. Having absorbed all of the comments from the community, the EPA issued us a license with some prescriptive notifications around blasting and transport of materials. And then, of course, the mining license immediately followed that. We put in our mining plan about a month and a half ago, the mine operating plan. And so the licenses all came forward at just about the same time. But the process is, as you can imagine, pretty rigorous. And again, we had full support from the community. I think when we had our open house or our public hearing, we had probably about 98% of the people who stood up in support of the mine. And I think probably 1 or 2% stood up and said, well, don't forget about sampling and don't forget about monitoring and don't forget about these sorts of things that are always done in terms of operating the mine.
Thank you very much for that. I think that there's a kind of question that I'd like to ask. We've heard quite a bit about from all the miners about, I guess, the importance of ESG. I guess that's a specific question for you. How do you go and work with like local communities? Can you give us like one maybe practical example as to how you'll work with local communities that's really making a difference? Maybe I can go to Nana first.
Great. So I think we've done quite a lot in terms of utilizing the local communities, skilled and unskilled labor to advance our project. We have only one expert on site, and we're employing over 100 people right now, and that has resonated well with them. And we're trying to expand that even further by involving them in some communal programs so that food for the camp is provided by cooperative, which would be sort of circulating some economic activity back into the fold. There are programs that we're working on with our contractors that could include water well provisions to several communities around us. And when COVID hit, we quickly made donations of PPEs as we try to make our protocols stringent on our camps. We extended the gestures as well to some of the communities around us. So we think we have a very good social license that has been built so far, but we're not resting on our oars, and we constantly communicate and looking for opportunities where we can work with them to provide additional results.
Thank you very much for that, Nana. Moving on to Boris, I'm just keen about any local initiatives that you've done. I think I've seen on your website you've got, is it Alliance for Mining?
Well, we have a little bit, how do I say it, complicated structure. There were a couple of subsidiaries established before, but answering the questions that you just posted about the local community, I think it's essential. Actually, it's 80% of your success story, how you build your relationship with the people where you do business. The government is based in the capital. The government is key to allow you to start your activity. But when you are on the ground, when you have geological production guys actually drilling, having a day-to-day activity, the way you establish yourself locally means everything. I would say that you asked about the example. We in Emiral Resources, we voluntarily put on top of all the obligations that we pay to the government, royalties, and the government is a huge participant in our company. We already actually paid during this 9 years of production about 180 million euros in taxes to Sudan government. So we, on top of all that, we put on ourselves 2% special royalty that we pay locally to the local community, to the local Busherin tribe, which is located in the area where we're doing business. And this is on top of doing, inviting and employing local labor force on our plant, security people local, all security is local actually, and doing a lot of things on the ground, purely social nature. We rebuild the school, we build the medical facility, we supplied the medical equipment. We had a couple of huge floods, which are very often in Sudan, with the loss of lives, unfortunately. And we personally, I would say, financed the relief effort without any government participation. These tiny little things, which are not that tiny in terms of money, but they create huge impact, a positive impact on the relationship between the investor and the local guys. Even when we have some issues in the past we had with the central bank, for example, in Khartoum, when they had their own ideas how to export gold, and there was some bureaucracy and paperwork, the local community physically showed up in the offices of the governor of the central bank, actually, I would say, explaining to the bureaucrats why it's important that our export is not impeded. So it was quite impressive, I would say.
Thank you very much for that. John Barker.
Yes, I mean, we're a small company, but really in these sort of areas that we operate, you can make a big difference to the community. And you have to keep in communication. That word's come up a number of times, and we're no different. You have to communicate what you're doing, first of all, which is critical. And but you have to also speak to them about their needs, understand what their needs are, and perhaps yourself look at it and try and see what their needs are. So from our point of view, we built clinics, school, and most recently, the tail end of our drilling program, we shifted a drill rig in towards the local major community and drilled a number of water holes, which has transformed the quality of the water for the locals there. And obviously, as we grow bigger, it'll become more and more of a positive for us. But just from an ESG perspective, I think I mentioned we're looking at hydro, as Kibali has really benefited significantly from hydro. That's also going to be a key part of our ESG initiative going forward as well.
Luke?
Yeah, so I mean, working closely with the local communities is obviously crucial. I mean, John just highlighted a number of things renovating schools, clinics, installing water wells. I mean, those are all things that we do at Newcore as well. The other thing would be, we're always, whenever we go into a new area or one of our new targets, we always offer jobs to the locals first, so the casual labor jobs. And then maybe I'd make more of a general comment about Ghana as a whole. I mean, as many people will know, it is Africa's largest gold producer, 6th largest gold producer globally. So with that, you get a huge amount of skilled labor in country, and Ghana is actually an exporter of mining talent across all of Africa and around the world. So that's something that we're very fortunate. At our project, we don't have any expats working on site or in country. So we're able to leverage off of that real skilled labor in country to push our project forward. So that's another, real advantage of being in Ghana.
And thank you very much for that. And Dave?
Yeah, just to emphasize what a lot of people have said about local employment. Anytime we engage with a contractor, we require that they go about their business the same way that we do relative to the community. And it starts with local employment, local employment. As Luke mentioned, and as others have mentioned, the talent that's available here is of international quality. I've operated in Tanzania with excellent Ghanaian engineers and geologists. The guys we have on site, I think we have 2 expats. And then the rest of everybody in the company really is from somewhere in Ghana. We also have a policy toward hiring women. The mining contractors come on board now, and 50% of the people that they're hiring are women. We set up our mining program so that training goes with the contract. It's not about bringing people from somewhere else in the country. CSR is something that 20 years ago, it was something that you assigned to some people and they ran it out of another part of the company. Now it's a core business activity. And if you want to be a successful miner, you have to be as good at CSR as you are at drill, blast, load, haul, and processing. And the people who are in that discipline are, in my experience, are every bit as capable as any of our other disciplines. The other part of the equation is what you find with today's miner is that the manager of mining wants to be involved with CSR. The process manager wants to be involved and wants to take on projects with CSR. It's not just an activity that's delivered by 1 or 2 managers. It's an activity that's delivered by the entire management team.
Thank you very much for that. Just returning to our 2 investor guests. Chen, I'm just kind of curious, I don't know if you're able to, but are you able to give us like a weighting of the West African gold companies in your portfolio? And I guess, are you looking to increase or decrease?
Oh, I'm definitely looking for opportunities. Right? So I'm more familiar with Guyana, and it seems to be a relatively, a very safe jurisdiction for mining. So I think I own Newcore. I heard of Asante story, and the Loncor Gold is also very impressive. So it's really for investor, you need to look at the Lucerne curve, right? You look at the curve, you have a discovery, and that's where the earliest stage of Newcore and the drilling deep, which can be very exciting. And then Loncor, they have the resource, right? So they try to build a project where Dave Anthony, Asante, is almost there later this year. So it's really depends on your risk profile and then where you want to put money at the Lucerne curve for the maximum return.
And yourself, Mark?
Well, we don't run a portfolio. We're quite lumpy investments or exposures. So we tried to put $50 million into Mali last year. As I said, I was there in October. It didn't work out. So I mean, our exposure is fairly limited at the moment, but we're looking for opportunities. We're definitely keen to invest up to $50 million one way or another into any of the projects in that sort of region.
Many, many thanks for that. I think that brings us up to the hour mark, and that means that we've run out of time for today's episode. But all that remains for me to do is to go and thank our guests, who are Dave Anthony from Asante Gold, Boris Ivanov from Emiral Resources, John Barker from Loncor Gold, Luke Alexander from Newcore Gold, Nana Sangmuah from Roscan Gold, Mark Tyler from Auramet Trading, and Chen Lin from Chen Lin Asset Management. Also, a big thanks to our media partner, RGN. We will be seeing you next week when we're running our 5 at 5 at 5 p.m. Melbourne time. Until then, stay safe. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.